Thomas Jefferson laid this out in an 1816 letter to Samuel Kercheval. Oh, yeah, he said, those seeking profits were they given total freedom would not be the ones to trust to keep government pure and our rights secure. Indeed, it has always been those seeking wealth who were the source of corruption in government. No other depositories of power have ever yet been found which did not end in converting to their own profit the earnings of those committed to their charge. Okay. Indeed, it has always been those seeking wealth who were the source of corruption in government. He went on to say, I am not among those who fear the people. Now think about ALEC and all their efforts to stop voting all across the Republican Party. I am not among those who fear the people. They, and not the rich, are our dependents for continued freedom. We must make our election between economy and liberty, or profusion and servitude. Otherwise, as the people of England are, and keep in mind, this was, during this was a little pre-Victorian, but basically in England you had no middle class. You had the rich, very small rich class. You had a very small middle class, which was the doctors and lawyers and bankers and shop owners, the mercantilists and the professionalists. And then you had a very large class of working people who were the working poor. So Jefferson says, otherwise, as the people of England are, our people, like them, must come to labor 16 hours in the 24, and the 16th being insufficient to afford us bread, we must live as they do now on oatmeal and potatoes, have no time to think, no means of calling the mismanagers to account. Now, are we talking about today? Right? If you could reduce people to poverty, they can't even get into the streets to call, to no means to calling the mismanagers to account, but be glad to obtain subsistence. Now get this, just think about this for a minute, about the people who are so, pleased that they got a job as a manager at Walmart or something, but be glad to obtain subsistence by hiring themselves to rivet their chains on the necks of our fellow sufferers. He said a totally free market would transform the country, quote, until the bulk of the society is reduced to be mere automatons of misery, and to have no sensibilities left but for sinning and suffering. Then indeed begins the bella omnium in omnia. This is a phrase, this is a verbatim, he lifted that out of Leviathan by Thomas Hobbes. The bella omnia et omnia, the war of all against all. It's Latin. Then begins indeed the bellum omnium it in omnia, which some observers, he's talking about Hobbes, observing to be so general in this world, have mistaken for the natural instead of the abusive state of man. Which gets back to my old riff about, the whole conservative worldview is based on Hobbes's worldview, the Hobbes's assumption that the natural state of man is that you've got rulers and the ruled, that you've got predators and prey. And Jefferson was saying, no, that's not the natural state of man or mankind or humankind. To use the language of his time. So I think that we need to be seriously looking at what Teddy Roosevelt was saying. Here's in 1785, this is a letter to James Madison from Thomas Jefferson. Another means of silently lessening the inequality of property is to exempt all from taxation below a certain point, and to tax the higher portions of property in geometrical progression as they rise. In 1784, taxes should be proportioned to what may be annually spared by the individual, and as noted earlier, as wealth rises, so should taxes geometrically. In an 1826 letter to William B. Giles, Jefferson warned back then, right? 1826. He was an old man then. This was a year or two before he died. He said, some conservatives, my phrase, he was talking actually about the John Adams wing, the Federalists. He said, they now look to a single and splendid government of an aristocracy, founded on banking institutions and moneyed in corporations, under the guise and cloak of their favorite branches of manufactures, commerce, and navigation. See, the modern day equivalent of that would be are the oil barons, right? The coal barons, the defense industry. They now look to a single and splendid government of an aristocracy founded on banking institutions and moneyed in corporations under the guise and cloak of their favored branches of manufactures, commerce, and navigation, riding and ruling over the plundered plowman and beggared yeomanry. The plowman, the farmer, the yeomanry, the yeoman is the worker. This will be to them a next best blessing to the monarchy of their first aim, and perhaps the surest stepping stone to it. Thomas Jefferson, who died bankrupt, had some understanding of, what was going on with these guys. And then this is my favorite of his quotes. This is April 6th, 1816, his letter to Joseph Milligan. If the overgrown wealth of an individual, say Daddy Koch, who founded or helped found the John Birch Society and bequeathed millions to his sons, if the overgrown wealth of an individual be deemed dangerous to the state, the best corrective is the law of equal inheritance to all in equal degree. An inheritance tax. Now, he was also, at that point, he was, in fact, one of the first pieces of legislation he proposed, maybe 30 years earlier, 35, 40 years earlier, when he was in the House of Burgesses in Virginia, was to do away with I'm forgetting the old archaic name for it, but they had a law that said that the oldest male inherited everything. And he was the oldest son of his father. And when his father died, he inherited his mother and his brother and sisters. Basically inherited responsibility for them. And he was like, a teenager. And he fought against that law. Primogeniture. Yeah, it's called primogeniture. And he was a big opponent of the law of primogeniture.